My tuition is around $90,000 a year.
People want this kind of TikTok, Instagram-worthy lifestyle.
Last time I checked, it was upwards of $150,000, $60,000.
Okay, so today we're going to be checking out a video from Bloomberg titled Why Young People Are in So Much Debt. I thought this would go pretty well with my channel, so let's just get right into it and see what they have to say.
Young people are facing a serious debt problem. Between 2022 and 2023, Boomers saw a slight decrease in debt year over year, while Gen X saw a slight uptick. But Millennials saw their average debt increase by 8%, and Gen Z more than 15%.
Many young adults are finding themselves sinking deeper into debt.
This credit card concern seems to be particularly true for Gen Z.
Young people today are being shut out of the American dream.
So how much worse off are younger generations? And how did it get so bad?
I am in debt for education.
Oh my God, I didn't know there was a word for it, doom spending.
I start getting overwhelmed about, okay, how am I going to pay this off?
If you ask me how I would describe my generation financially, broke. Very broke.
The minimum wage is so low and it's not livable.
I don't feel like wages have kept up with inflation at all.
Do I feel like my income has kept up with the rising cost of food and cost of living in general? Absolutely not. I now make probably just a little bit more than I did when I finished undergrad in 2017. Meaning like my income has not gone up much at all, and I have a whole master's degree now.
Meet Shaheen, a licensed therapist living in Brooklyn.
The difference between Gen Z, millennials, and the Gen X and the boomers, they had a lot more opportunity because their wages kind of matched up with how much things cost.
They're not wrong.
Okay, so a couple things. I do agree that wages have not kept up with inflation. That's pretty apparent now, but the first clip about minimum wage not being able to survive on it, I think is kind of a tired argument now. It's been like that for quite a long time. I know generations ago, maybe you could have gotten away with that and still lived a normal life, but for years now, we've realized that even upping the minimum wage in certain states for jobs at McDonald's or retail jobs will still mean that you're just not going to survive. You're going to need a lot of roommates, a really cheap car, no payments, you know, everything absolutely bare bone, honestly. But with him talking about opportunity with older generations, I think it does go both ways. Of course, there was a much easier path to have that kind of American dream and be able to make a decent amount of money, have a family, you know, a dog, white picket fence, and you're not absolutely killing yourself or riddled with debt to just get into that situation. But I do want to say that in the modern age, there are a lot more avenues to make money compared to a couple generations ago. And that's primarily because of the internet. I'm not saying that everybody is going to make 7 figures online from their laptop in their house, but I do think we're in a very different landscape than a few generations ago.
Younger people today are making less than older people did at the same age. Adjusting for inflation, 22 to 24-year-olds in 2013 were making almost $52,000 a year. That number today, down to $45,000. And that difference puts Gen Z in a tough spot. In 2013, the debt-to-income ratio for the same age group was 11.76%. Today, it's more than 16%.
Technically, younger generations today are making more than any other generation did. But when you adjust for inflation, which is, you know, relative to the cost of everything else to maintain a lifestyle, it is less.
And from 2021 to 2022, for those aged 35 to 44, median income fell 0.8%, compared to a 0.6% drop for those aged 25 to 34. But for the 15 to 24-year-olds, median income fell 5.8%. That means the youngest generation saw the most significant drop in median income when adjusted for inflation.
Emotionally, about my wages and income, I cannot tell you how much anxiety I live through on a daily basis. I don't have a safety net. I don't have anybody financially backing me. I don't have a support system. I don't have anybody to go to if I don't hold it all together. And that is anxiety inducing.
Now, I don't want to take away the guy's situation and what he has to deal with, but I'm pretty sure from the people that they're interviewing, they're in New York City, one of the most expensive places to live on the planet. So when it seems like people are having issues all over the country right now, how much more difficult is it to live in the city, having all of these issues with the renting prices being thousands and thousands of $5,000. I mean, $3, $4, $5,000 plus, not like $1,000 to $2,000, or you'd get literally one single closet room. But it doesn't really seem too surprising to me that a lot of the Gen Z is racking up the credit card debt way faster than anybody else right now.
The gap between wages and cost of living has pushed many younger people to increasingly turn to credit cards to pay for goods and services.
There you go.
Last year, the average credit card balance for early 20-somethings was 26% higher than the balance millennials carried at the same age in 2013. Not only is Gen Z racking up credit card debt faster than any other generation, but 1 in 7 Gen Z credit card users are reportedly maxed out.
That's
in this period
insane
of high
to
inflation,
me.
people are just trying to maintain the lifestyles that they've always had, and it just costs more.
Increasingly, these low wages are also compounded with another big challenge for younger generations: rising housing costs.
I do just want to butt in real quick with her last comment saying it's just to maintain the lifestyle that they always lived. Now, I do think that's a little 50-50, a little bit of foreshadowing for the future of this video, but just keep that in mind while we watch.
What I'm more worried about after graduation is affording a house. The market right now is kind of scary.
There's no way I could own a home. That's like a far-fetched
Especially in New
dream.
York.
The cost of like homes has just changed dramatically.
It's like really hard to even rent.
The older generations just do not have a realistic view of exactly what we're dealing with. They grew up in a time period where you could go to work, you could like work a 9 to 5 and only that 9 to 5, and over time you'll be able to save up enough to buy a home. That's not the standard anymore.
Especially in
The
NYC.
landscape for housing, both renting and buying, looks very different for young people today. Thanks to soaring prices and high interest rates, older generations, including baby boomers and Gen Xers, still make up the majority share of home buyers.
The barrier to entry to buy a home is much higher. You have to have a bigger down payment because the median value of a home is over $400,000, right? At the same time, borrowing costs are higher. They're at 7%. And so taken all together, you just need to save a lot more and a lot longer to be able to buy, a starter home.
So especially researching topics for this channel, seeing all the issues people are having with home buyers remorse, prices going up dramatically, the interest rates still going up. It has actually gotten to me a little bit, and I was planning on looking at a house in like a year or so, but I have actually been looking a little bit more, not super seriously, but it has honestly just pissed me off how expensive it is to live in my area if you want to legitimately buy a house and not rent like I am. I'm completely basically priced out of this whole area, so I'm looking at places about 30-35 minutes away, and I'm getting worried that even within the next couple years I could possibly be priced out of that area too, because at least right now they are somewhat reasonable cost. I mean, houses in the 300,000s, like 300, 315,000 is what I was looking at, but any of the average home prices of like 425, 430, and specifically in places near cities or in cities can be way worse. Most of the younger generations don't even really have a hope to ever own one of these houses.
For renters, it's also troubling. Rents nationwide climbed 30% from 2019 to 2023, while wages across the country were only up 20%.
Housing costs are just taking up that much more of their paycheck.
The rent goes up every year, the wages do not. Depending on the month, it can be upwards of like 50% of my income.
Between housing being so expensive and income not keeping up with inflation, the debt crisis for younger generations has only intensified.
I do also want to cut in with my experience. Now, I don't have years and years of experience in moving around with different landlords and renting. However, I am not renting from one of the conglomerates that own, 100 or 200 different single-family homes and townhouses, apartment buildings. I'm just renting from a guy who paid off this townhome and lives in another area and just gets monthly rent from me. Even with where I am in North Carolina being a booming area, he didn't raise the rent for me on my second year of this lease. So maybe if you are looking for places through like Zillow or Redfin, taking a look at properties from somebody who is just a normal guy, not a big conglomerate or a company that has hundreds or thousands of units, could maybe help you out a little bit more than every single year the rent going up because the area overall went up in price or whatever reason they want to just charge you more. I'm not saying it's 100% that way. I've just seen that a lot of people complain that rent goes up every single year, and it's because huge companies just own the apartment building or the single family houses or whatever.
But for many, including Shaheem, there's another much larger obstacle looming over them.
If I had to say which debt scares me the most, it is hands down my student loans.
My tuition is around $90,000 a year, which is
man.
insane.
You meet someone from another country and they're like, it's what? Like, that's a lot of money.
I don't know the balance. Last time I checked, it was upwards of $150,000-$60,000.
One of the
man.
biggest debt burdens that they'll take on, and one of the first debts most Americans take on.
More than ever before, the very thing young adults are told to do to secure their future is one of the biggest reasons that the future is increasingly in doubt.
100%. I know I've said this a couple times on videos, but I truly believe it. Back when I was 16, 17 years old at the end of high school, I knew nothing. I basically just went to school a lot and worked out, and that was basically it. Knew nothing about the real world and how much it cost to go to college. I was just told by everybody that you had to do it to be successful, and I guess luckily enough for me, I didn't have good enough grades to go into an actual college or university, so I had to go to community college. And by the time I found out it wasn't worth it for me, I only racked up about $20,000 worth of debt, and people get way worse situations than that. But sometimes it's just not the path for somebody in life, or they end up getting a degree in a job that has a real tough time paying off the debt to get that specific degree or certificate that they needed to do the job.
We're seeing college enrollment levels drop, or we're seeing that some students are trying to be smarter about, how they're going to college.
Good.
Some are living at home, some are foregoing college altogether.
Yep.
Let's look at the average cost of public universities since 1970, when a year's tuition cost around $1,300. In 2020, public university tuition was over $21,000 yearly. Of course, that's 50 years worth of inflation, but when we adjust for said inflation, the cost to attend public university in 1970 was only around $10,000, less than half of today's cost.
Yep.
When we look at the cost of private
Crazy.
universities adjusted for inflation, it's a huge jump too, to more than $52,000 compared to less than $21,000 in 1970.
Those really high student debt level burdens are not common in other countries. We are seeing a mass kind of disillusionment with higher education. I think getting a 4-year college degree used to be so intertwined with the American dream, and some young people are rejecting that.
In one poll, more than half of those who borrowed for education say that student loan debt has caused them to put off making important financial decisions.
I grew up
That's
in
surprising.
abject poverty. I went to school, I graduated, I did all of the things that they
NYU.
said that I should do, and I'm
Not cheap.
still stuck in the same spot.
This massive burden, combined with others for their generation, paints a bleak picture for the debt crisis. But there's a fourth, lesser-known reason that feeds off of this bleak outlook. It's called doom spending.
We know that.
Doom spending.
Doom spending to cope with the stress.
Homeownership or starting a family is so out of reach.
I think that people want to treat themselves to small luxuries
that'll bring us a semblance of the kind of adulthood we were promised.
Doom spending. I love it.
It kind of makes us, feel a little bit happier about the situation. So if it's gonna be like this regardless, I might as well get something for myself that I like and enjoy.
For me, it's like shopping,
Clothing.
Travel.
It does alleviate some of the stress.
Doom spending is like retail therapy with a fatalist twist. A lot of people feel hopeless or pessimistic about their financial futures, and that's manifesting in a lot of different ways. Some people turn to doom spending.
And this consumer habit is backed by research.
So we definitely know a thing or two about doom spending, but the clip that we saw with the small luxuries has really expanded, maybe small in actual dimensions, because people will end up getting $2,000-$3,000 purses that are really tiny, super luxury, Gucci, Burberry, whatever the brand, spending way more money than they should be, and crazy vacations they can't afford, just swiping the card, crazy car payments, getting a nice GLE. I don't really see doom spending too much in the very small luxuries. I see it as just going completely off the deep end and ending up in 5-6 figures worth of debt.
So in one of my research papers, I looked to ask the question, why do people not save enough for retirement ages?
That's Stephen Wu, an economics professor at Hamilton College.
And there have been many explanations for why people do not save. Sometimes people lack the information about how to save. Some people might lack self-control to do so. They may know that they should save, but they're unable to do so. And I introduce another phenomenon, this idea that perhaps people are fatalistic. They think that whatever they do doesn't necessarily affect their future outcomes.
Professor Wu's study found that those who doom spend or have fatalistic tendencies believe they have little or no control over their future.
So that may lead to individuals to just throw their hands up and say, well, why worry about saving now? Because even if I do save, I may still have financial difficulties in the future.
Instead of saving, many are splurging on luxury goods to soothe their economic despair. And while 27% of Americans of all ages admit to doom spending, the rates are even higher among Gen Z and millennials, at 35 and 43% respectively.
Almost half at millennials. Oh, wow. But I mean, if you're choosing not to save because you have that fatalistic tendency and you think that you have no control over your life, it's virtually a guarantee if you just throw up the white flag and just start swiping at every little thing you want and get that little dopamine hit and gives you a little bit of joy and then basically goes away instantly. I don't know, that's just how I think about it. Kind of just seems like giving up to me.
Well, I believe that people do it because they need a dopamine hit.
Younger generations are also growing up in an online environment of hyperconsumption.
People want this TikTok, Instagram-worthy lifestyle. Never before have young people been so exposed to this aspirational lifestyle.
I partner with L'Oreal Paris to show you
where people kind of have these expectations of success and what they want their lives to look like.
Collection from David Yardley.
And those things cost more.
So earlier in the video, they were racking up debt to just maintain normal lifestyles, and it turned into doom spending, giving up on saving for your financial future. And now it's the influencer / celebrity lifestyle that everybody wants. And it's the expectation, I guess, is what you're supposed to have in your life is the same people that have millions of followers and get PR packages and get free everything just to have brands advertising a little bit more on their page. So it seems a little bit different than just maintaining a normal lifestyle. Everybody thinks that they should have all the luxuries and amenities that these modern day celebrities have now. They are the new actors and actresses. Maybe they're not making as much money as the Brad Pitt level, but it's still way more than most of us will ever see. And expecting to have the exact same lifestyle as those people is just, you're setting yourself up for failure.
And the rise of buy now, pay later products has driven Gen Z into more debt.
The worst.
Today, younger people have Venmo, they have PayPal, they have buy now, pay later, they have earned wage access, they have cash advance apps on their phone. It's so easy to lose track of how much you're spending.
So what does the future of this ballooning debt crisis hold for young adults? Many are looking to the government for help. But young people would need sweeping policy change to truly lessen the burden of debt.
The emotional toll on younger people facing this debt crisis is immeasurable.
There is a lot of uncertainty, and I think perhaps we may see people saving less. When those generations get older, they may be less prepared for retirement ages.
Younger generations face some of the most difficult economic headwinds of their time that are forcing them to take on more debt to achieve the same lifestyle that generations before had.
Now, to me, it seems like a little bit of both parties' fault. Of course, it's more expensive now to have a normal middle-class lifestyle that you saw a few generations ago. But at the same time, if you're just going to give up and then destroy your financial future and not save and just kind of throw up that white flag, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? There's no real good to come from it, and comparing yourselves to others that you're just doom scrolling and swiping on your phone all day. Honestly, life's unfair. Not everybody's going to get the exact same share and the exact same Louis Vuitton luxury items and nice Mercedes or BMW, big mansion in the hills or whatever, right? But expecting that to be your lifestyle because we've become so ingrained on looking at what other people do online, which most of the time isn't even their real life, it's just a highlight reel at best, if not completely faking it, will just set you up for failure right from the start. But we'll take a look at some of the comments from this video. Yearly tuition of $90,000 is insane. I can't even imagine paying that much for any degree. I would assume then it was some school in New York City, which would be very expensive. I remember seeing in the tuition video that somebody from USC was spending $90,000 on tuition a year. So it's not unheard of, even though it sounds so ridiculous. In my opinion, student loans are massively missold. You're selling a huge loan to a young adult who doesn't understand the lifelong consequences. Of course, say if you did something, I guess reasonable, still expensive, but reasonable compared to the $90,000. You went to a school that was $30,000 a year, right? So after your 4-year degree, you didn't make any mistakes, you're $120,000 in debt. But you end up getting a solid job and you're making $70,000, $80,000 a year. I think a lot of people's minds, they think, oh, I'd be able to pay off that $120,000 within like 5 years. Be able to get a house, a car, whatever, the whole family, same American dream, right? But that $120,000 is way more after the interest that's being accrued, along with the cost of living going up. So it's very difficult to get a house. You're probably renting, which again, most likely would be going up every single year. And you're just putting these thoughts into somebody at 16, 17 years old that it's just that easy. Go into a whole bunch of debt and then magically just start making a ton of money. It's just not really how it works for a lot of people. That's why young people don't want to have children. Now, I don't know if they can't have children, like financially wise, or they're choosing not to. Now, I've seen this for a while now. People have talked about it for years. Now, personally, I do want to have children. And at least in my thought process, if there's that many people who are legitimately not having children around my age, wouldn't it actually be easier in the end for your child? If not as many people are working, be a lot easier to get a job. Same thing with going to universities. Now, I know it's not cheap. Virtually everything that I make that doesn't go into expenses are going into high yield savings accounts and investments to try to make as much money with the extra money that I have to be able to live like the normal middle class people generations ago. And I know that that sucks, but I don't know. It actually seems like it might be a little bit easier for the next generations if there's that many less people having kids. I don't know, just my thought. Here we have another. Yes, people have bad spending habits, but the critical problem is that it's way too easy for people to get credit and debt. Everywhere you go, you're being solicited, credit card, buy now, pay later. The government needs to take some ownership for enabling bad behavior and start restricting credit and buy now, pay later. Now, I know that they're extremely predatory, especially credit cards. I remember watching a video of a woman paying down her debts. I think it was like $20,000 or $30,000 in debt. And as she was paying off the credit card, the company was regularly increasing her limits with emails that specifically said, like, here's more credit to pay for that next vacation, like word for word. It was pretty messed up. But as I say over and over again with a lot of my videos, you need to take accountability for your actions. I get the credit card companies are just trying to make money off of you from interest payments because you want to have that new item. You want to be like everybody else, keeping up with the Joneses and have nice expensive things. But at the same time, you do need to have your own discipline and not the government take control of what you're allowed to do or not do. Universities should spend money for education and not for sports teams and stadiums. I know that that is another piece of the puzzle why tuition has gone up so much, because if you go to a college football game with a semi-decent school, not something super small like a D3 school, it is basically like going to the NFL now. These stadiums are unbelievable for kids that are possibly like 17, 18-year-old kids who just got out of high school are now basically professional athletes. They're on TV. I mean, 50, 60,000 people show up at these big games, and that probably contributes to very, very high tuition costs. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.